Welcome back to Agent Investor. Agent Investor is the only brand that helps real estate agents get off the real estate roller coaster. We are the only brand that help and teach agents how to invest in real estate, regardless of if you have any money to start, regardless of whether you have any experience investing or not. And we teach you strategies on how to invest in real estate that are not going to take away from your real estate agent business. Um, Everything we teach isn't about stopping to sell real estate. It is to supplement your real estate sales income so that you have guaranteed monthly income coming in each and every month. And actually, it guarantees that you're going to stay in real estate over the long haul. I can't tell you, as I'm talking right now, April 2024, I can't tell you how many full-time agents have left the business in the last couple of years to get full-time jobs because of how crazy this market has been, how low the inventory has been, and how sporadic their income has been. Imagine for those agents who have quit the business and now have full-time jobs if they had 5 or 10 or 15 or $20,000 of monthly passive income from owning real estate assets. The agent investor model that we teach and we believe is very, very simple and very easy for every single real estate agent to follow is for real estate agents to look for flip opportunities, right? Flip opportunities are going to give you big chunks of income, 20, 30, 40, 50, 80, $100,000 at a time. Those fix and flip incomes are going to allow you to put down payments on assets that you own over the long haul that are going to appreciate, they're going to throw off guaranteed monthly income, etc. And as all of you know, we have our agent partnership program. So every agent that's listening to this, all you have to do is find a deal. You no longer need to have capital. You no longer need to know how to renovate a property. Bring us the next deal that you find. We'll put up the money, we'll do the construction, and we'll split the profits 50-50, right? Do 1 or 2 or 3 of those in a year, you're going to have enough money to put down on that asset that's going to throw off $1,500, $2,000 a month. Own 4, 5, 6 of those assets, and you're going to have enough money to probably survive regardless of how many homes you sell this year. Again, our saying at Agent Investor is sales will make you a living, investing will make you wealthy. We truly believe that. Okay, so topic for today, again, another topic that has been brought up by me having a lot of conversations with agents about how to find great fix and flip deals. And I've noticed this theme, I've noticed this trend where I get on a call with somebody who's in our Inner Circle program, and they tell me that they're targeting people facing foreclosure, or they're driving for dollars looking for really beat up houses, and they're telling me that this is how they're going to find deals. And I've had so many of these conversations individually that I thought it warrants the discussion on the podcast, so that you guys can really get the truth about why sellers actually sell to investors. Why would a seller want a cash offer? And what's the real motivation? What type of people does this work for? But before I say that, I want to make a statement. I did post this on my personal Facebook account, which if you want more content from me, follow me on my personal Facebook page at Tommy Caffarella, Tommy, my last name, Caffarella, Tommy Caffarella, not Tom Caffarella. I've got a couple of accounts. Follow me if you want more information, but I did a post on my personal page that basically said that all sellers are better off having a cash offer. This is a common misconception and something that truthfully a lot of agents are afraid of. A lot of agents, when they get a seller appointment or they hear about a seller that wants to sell their property, they think that they automatically have to go in and just simply provide a listing consult and that's it, right? They're afraid that if they go in and the seller wants to list their house, and let's say that they want to list their house for $600,000, and you also have a cash offer that's a little bit lower than the $600,000, that the seller is going to get offended, that they're going to lose the listing opportunity. or that the seller is going to view you as less valuable. This couldn't be further from the truth. We give over 100 cash offers per week, and a seller is always 100% of the time better off having a cash offer as an option than not. Now, let me be clear about this. Most sellers are going to end up taking their property to market. Most sellers, after you have a good, honest conversation about them, about their goals, about what they need, about what they want, are going to then decide that they do want to go on the market, that they want to try to get as many people on their property as possible. And that's okay. Most sellers are going to determine that. But even the sellers that determine that they want to put their property on the market, they will also have that option. Hey, if at any moment after you leave this listing appointment, before we put the property on the MLS, maybe during the property being on the MLS where I might have an inspection issue or a renegotiation issue, I always have this basically sell it now price from a cash buyer that I can take whenever I need it. And in this market, we all know there's not a lot of inventory. Sellers are getting really good prices for their homes. That could change at any moment, but as of right now, the market's super competitive. Sellers are generally getting really good offers on their properties. But even in this market, here and there, a seller will go through a home inspection and maybe go through 2 home inspections. And for whatever reason, they have good reasons. They decide, you know what, I am just going to take that cash offer. I know what that cash offer is. I'm going to take it. I want to be out of my house in 30 days or 45 days or whatever their timeline is. Okay, so just keep in mind that there is no negative for a seller to have that cash offer in their back pocket. If we come out on an appointment with you and we provide them with a cash offer, we're going to tell them the benefits of taking that cash offer and the negatives of taking that cash offer, right? Because there's positives and negatives of taking that cash offer. The positive is they know exactly what that number is going to be. They know exactly when their closing is going to be. They know that there's no renegotiation. They know that they can leave all of their stuff behind in the property. They know that they don't have to make any repairs. What's the negative? The negative of taking a cash offer is that you might end up getting less than you would have gotten had you put it on the market and exposed that property to more buyers, right? When we come out and we explain that to a seller, sellers make that determination, right? You're giving your seller more options, right? You're not just saying there's one way to sell your property, but yes, there's multiple ways to sell your property. I'm not just an agent, but I'm an agent with Investor Solutions. And when you bring us a lead, we're going to go out on that appointment with you and help you through those talking points, right? We're going to make sure that not only are you not going to lose that listing, but that you actually have a better ability to get that listing if you bring us out on the appointment. All right. So again, the topic for today, and I've titled this, fiction. Most sellers sell to investors because of property condition and or that they're behind on their mortgage. And that's fiction, right? It is fictional that most sellers sell their homes to us because of condition or because they're behind in their mortgage. Now, again, I want to be clear. Do some sellers sell us their property just because of condition? Yes. We buy properties in any condition. So there are sellers who have a failed septic. They just had fire damage in their property. They can only sell to an investor, basically. It won't even come close to passing FHA inspection. And yes, here and there, we do buy homes for people. We go out to their property. They've got an auction date that's a week or 2 or 3 away. And really, at that point, we're typically their best solution because, otherwise the property is going to go to auction. Okay, so again, we do buy houses like that. Those do exist. But I would say more often than not, the houses that we buy don't necessarily fit into that category. So I'm going to talk about the types of properties that we buy. And I do want to talk a little bit about the condition in the foreclosure thing just really quickly as to why those aren't necessarily the most common reasons. Okay. So a lot of times when we buy a home from a seller, it is not because of necessarily what is happening to the seller or what is happening to the property. It is the mindset of the person that makes that determination that they want to sell to an investor. Meaning that somebody can have, and I'm sure if you're a listing agent or you've listed homes, somebody can have a house that needs a lot of work. that doesn't mean that they're actually going to be realistic about the number that they're trying to get. Okay. So we go on plenty of appointments where we go out to the property needs a ton of work, and they're just fighting tooth and nail about what number they think in their head that they should get. Oftentimes it's much more than an investor can pay. And a lot of times we don't buy that house for that reason. Um, and then to add on to the foreclosure thing, in this market, right, and especially like where we live, where I live in New England, sellers have so much time between the time that they are defaulting on their mortgage until an auction actually happens. It can be a year, it can be 2 years, or it could be 3 years. So it's not common that a seller, because they have plenty of time to make a decision on what they want to do, it is not common for a seller to wait all the way until that last day, call us and say, "Hey, we have to close in a week." Okay? Again, we buy plenty of properties that need a ton of work. We buy plenty of properties where they're behind on their mortgage. But there are so many other scenarios that are out there. And it's why when people tell me, and this is how this conversation all started, I've been told over and over again for years, okay, Tom, I just want to let you know this is how I'm trying to find great investment deals. I'm looking for people that are behind on their mortgage, or I'm driving for dollars. And it's why I don't advocate doing those things, because again, the bulk of the properties that we buy don't need as much work as you might think and are not behind on their mortgage. So I don't love that strategy because, again, it's not doing what somebody thinks it's doing. And when I have those conversations with people, it's always with people, agents that are newer, to finding properties, newer to the investment game. And this is kind of like a preconceived notion of what they have in their head, of what, investing is going to be like. And it's just really, not the truth. So having said all of that, I want to talk to you about like reasons why a seller, even if their house doesn't need a ton of work, and even if they're not facing foreclosure, might want to listen to a cash offer or might take a cash offer. Again, going back to what I said a few minutes ago, I believe that every seller should have the ability to learn what a cash offer is, right? Just learn. Hey, this is what a cash offer is. This is what the process is like. This is what listing your house looks like. This is what you might get if you list your house. The listing, what they might get if they list their house is going to be a little bit variable, right? We don't necessarily know what they're going to get until it hits the market. Whereas again, selling to a cash buyer, they're going to know right then and there what they're going to get. All right, so without further ado, these are just some of the reasons why a seller might decide to sell to us, even if the property doesn't need that much work or they're not facing foreclosure. Number one, seller inherits a home. Okay, so if you think about kind of the process here, right? In a lot of cases, if somebody's inheriting a home, in many cases it's the kids or a kid of somebody that just passed away. So if you think about that person in general, right? That person in general has just lost a loved one. In a lot of cases, they are not necessarily prepared or ready to take on a lot of other responsibilities. I haven't, had a lot of people pass away in my life, luckily, but I, had my grandfather, pass away when I was in my early 20s. And I remember that processing. I remember what my dad went through. I remember how long he was, dealing with the stress of my grandfather being sick, and then how much he was grieving, and we were all grieving, but I'm talking about my dad who inherited his property. How what his mind state was like at that point. And so again, for somebody in that state of mind, for somebody that's just gone through, a tough time in their life, sometimes getting top dollar isn't what they're thinking about, right? And you guys know, right? I teach on how to build wealth. I think I'm pretty money motivated, but there are times in all of our lives where we choose to not make the best financial decision, meaning like your decision is not 100% based on maximizing money, right? It's why like I spend a ton of money on my kids, right? For stuff that I know like that they're not going to utilize long term, or maybe it wasn't a good use of money. But again, this is something that we all do. We all have the ability and have all made choices in our life where we said, yeah, not the best, money decision, but I'm making this decision for a reason. The other thing with inherited properties in general is that a lot of times there's multiple people that are involved in that decision making. So think about like this: you inherit a property, you're paying taxes on that property, you're paying utilities on that property during that time period. So there is a little bit more motivation to get that house sold quickly because typically nobody's living there. In addition, who is going to be the one, taking the lead there? Who's going to be hiring the agent? Who's going to be making the repairs potentially? And then in addition, you also, if you have multiple people that have inherited the property, you're all getting a small slice of that deal. If there's 3 or 4 people that are going to get that, get the proceeds, well, if you take, 30 or $40,000 less than maybe market value, that's only 5 or 10 or $15,000 less per person. So again, this is just another example of why somebody who might have an okay house, like a lot of these houses that we buy that are probate and inherited properties, yeah, maybe they need a little bit of work, but they don't always need a ton. And a lot of times we buy them, we renovate them, and that's the right decision for that seller. Okay. Number 2, divorce. I'm not necessarily sure that this one needs too much of an explanation. I know not everybody's been divorced, but I think that everybody knows somebody that's been divorced. And I think that we know in general how, when that process is occurring, money isn't always the top priority of what people are thinking about. It can be. Again, with all of these things, right? Probate, divorce, whatever, it can still be their top priority, right? Somebody might inherit a home and say, hey, I want to get the max value. Same thing with divorce. It can happen that way too. But there are a lot of instances where there's a divorce going on. We just actually got an agent referral on a divorce property in New Hampshire that we recently closed on. And it was messy. It was a real messy situation. That the 2 people were very unhappy with each other. We had to play mediator a little bit. It was, a taxing deal for us, but for them, again, they needed to sell. A lot of things happened that really would have been challenging for a regular buyer. And we did things, and this is the other thing, with these types of properties. In this particular example, we had to give, and this is something we didn't even know about until we actually got the property under contract, but to get one of the sellers out, we had to give them money for first lasting security. We had to literally pay first lasting security for their apartment, and we actually had to pay an agent to find them a property. And again, that's just another benefit, and can be an example of reasons. I could talk for days about all these scenarios that are not super common, but for us, they're common. Like, they won't be common for agents that are listening to this, but they're common for us. Situations where we have to front money, situations where we have to help somebody in a way that a regular buyer just can't. I mean, a regular buyer isn't going to front somebody first last security and broker money. Okay, so that's divorces. That's another situation. The third thing is hoarding. First property, first investment deal that I ever did, 13 Cameron Ave in Somerville, Massachusetts. I've got a plaque up on my wall in my office right now, right outside of the room I'm in. Cameron Ave, Cameron Real Estate Group. The name of my brokerage was named after this deal. It's the first deal we ever did. A lot of you know the story. I went out on the appointment. The seller barely let me into the house. It was a great property, a 2-family in Teal Square in Somerville. Very, very hot location, great location. I spent a good amount of time trying to convince the seller to list with me. And when I went into her property, I didn't really know what hoarding was. And it really, I just looked at it. I went into her house and I just said, geez, there's a lot of stuff in here. It's kind of messy. My brain was focused on getting a listing. But what she said to me was something that, we hear over and over again, which is like, I don't want my neighbors to know I'm selling. I don't want my neighbors to be in my house. I don't want people in my property. And it was as simple as that, right? And as much as I wanted to list that home, she said to me, I will not let people into this house. So if you can't find me a buyer that will buy this house without going inside, then I'm going to find somebody who will. Like, I'll find somebody who will find me that buyer. It turned out that we ended up being that buyer. But again, just another example. And every house where there's a hoarding situation is different, but it's not uncommon for us to take out all the clutter of that property. And once the clutter is out, you go, oh wow, this property's not even really in that bad of condition. So this gets back to another point that I made in the beginning, which is like people that are driving for dollars. Like, you drive for dollars, you never would have known about this situation. From the outside of the property, you would have never known that there was seller motivation, which is why I don't advocate driving for dollars. All right, moving on to the next. So spouse recently passing away. All right, so obviously this is a little bit different than an inherited home, but death is it can be a driving factor to sell to a home buyer. Spouse passes away. And it commonly happens where the spouse passes away, and number one, the remaining spouse is not thinking, okay, how do I max out every dollar? It's not where their brain is at right then and there, right? And the other part, a lot of times with this, is spouse passes away. Now we got to figure out, like, if the current living situation even makes sense for the remaining person. A lot of times it doesn't. Maybe their property has, two sets of stairs, or, two levels, and they don't want to go up and down stairs anymore. Maybe they should maybe they should be in a different, either house or facility, or maybe they then need to move closer to a relative. And again, just an example of a situation where, what's the top priority? Like, I think if you were to ask most people who are a little older, their spouse passes away, what's the most important thing to you right now? It's probably not, let me sell my house and get top dollar. In a lot of cases, again, it can be, but in a lot of cases it's not. Okay. So having the ability to provide that person with a solution. We've had a lot of people, that have had, situations like that. They want to move closer to a relative, to a kid, to a brother, to a sister. And this market's crazy, right? So the last thing that they want to deal with is be under the gun to find a property because they're selling their house at the same time. So this leads me to another big benefit and reason why sellers value a cash offer is because they can pick the day, right? When we sign an agreement with the seller, yes, we are going to put a date in there, a moving date, but if they want to move it, we let them. Like, we are because we are not a retail traditional buyer, we're not dying to get into that property. We don't have our rental property, our lease isn't up. We're not, oh my goodness, like, I can't wait to get in here before the holidays. No, like, if somebody wants to extend with us, we allow them. We'll allow them to extend as long as possible. So it's common for a seller to sell to us because of how crazy this market is, right? I had a seller that, just an example, just an older seller, had a house in Boston, in one of the suburbs, one of the neighborhoods of Boston. And they said to us, we want to move south of Boston with my daughter, and I want to take my time, but I also, when I find a property that I like, I want to be able to close as soon as I want to close. And she said, well, whether that's going to be 6 months, a year, 2 years, I want you to be able to wait. Right? Again, a lot of why agents who have never dealt with these situations, or maybe not been involved with a cash offer before, they don't necessarily understand maybe what some of the motivations and what some of the benefits are of that person selling to us. And I don't even remember. Like, I don't remember this person who sold their property to us. I don't remember how long they took to find a place, because it didn't matter to me. If it was a month, it was a month. If it was a year, it was a year. If it was 2 years, it was 2 years. We were ready to be as patient as they wanted, or we'll be as fast as they need us to. And that was the one I just discussed. Another big one is tenants. Okay, another thing that a lot of times people don't think about, or maybe they don't have a lot of experience dealing with tenanted properties. But if you are a landlord and you own a piece of property and you decide that you're going to sell that piece of property, let's say that it's a 2-family or a 3-family in the greater Boston area. I know we've got listeners all over the place, but for sake of making this a little New England centric, if they've got a 2-family or they've got a 3-family, and they've got multiple tenants in there, right? This is an unfortunate reality. This is a fact, not really an opinion, of what happens a lot of times. You tell your tenants, hey, we're going to be selling this property. There's a couple things that a lot of times happens. Again, unfortunate but true. Number one, they stop paying. And number two, in a lot of cases, they don't want people to go inside their units for showings. Okay. Now, a lot of experienced landlords know this, or they've been told this. So a lot of times what they'll do is they'll actually sell to another investor who will inherit those tenants. And that's just another service, another reason, another type of person that will sell to an investor. I mean, it almost kind of like seems it seems like it wouldn't be likely, right? Somebody who's an investor, they're money motivated. Why would they take a little bit less to sell to another investor? Well, because the alternative might be that they tell their tenants stop paying them, and then all of a sudden they're in the eviction process for 2 or 3 people, all while not collecting rent. So again, you've got people in your property. It's a big deal, right? So again, that's another example of somebody. Health issues, another one that's a big one, right? Again, you've got health issues. I mean, they don't have to be serious, but just think about a serious health issue. Maybe you need to go to assisted living. Maybe you need, more permanent care, right? At that point in your life, is getting top dollar the most important thing? It might be. Again, it could be. But in a lot of cases, it's not, right? And again, it goes back to another like critical concept here, where, I'm 41 years old. I'm still pretty money motivated. I'm still in the growth phase of my life. What we have to understand is we cannot allow our preconceived notions dictate what we offer, right? So the analogy that I always give is like, if you think about like the shoes that you wear, the sneakers or the shoes that you wear, right? Some people think it's absolutely crazy to spend more than like 40 or 50 bucks on a sneaker or a pair of shoes. Now you have another group of people who also think it's crazy to only spend 40 or 50 bucks on a pair of shoes. They might say that, if you spend less than $100, like that's crazy, because your shoes are one of the most important parts of how you look and how people perceive you and this and that. It's why in every market there are multiple solutions. It's why there are Toyota Corollas and Lamborghinis, and there are all different types of people that buy them, right? So a lot of times when we're going out and we're saying, hey, a listing is the only way to sell your property because that's going to give you the best opportunity to get the most amount of money for your property. That's like me saying to somebody, you should buy a Lamborghini because it is the fastest car that you can buy and it's going to make you look really cool. Not asking you any other questions, not caring about what you think, not caring about what you're trying to achieve, right? So when we meet with sellers, we're trying to figure that out, right? We know, that listing a home the traditional way, it can go smooth in some cases. It can be fairly easy in some cases. But we also know that there are potential for a lot of things to go wrong, a lot of negative things. So when we're having that conversation with the seller, we're giving them options and explaining to them, what makes the most sense. So again, you're facing a health issue, that's a big deal. And there's another one, and another one. And the last one I'm going to talk about, but I could continue to kind of go on and on and on, is just some people just want an easier sale. Like literally, they just want an easier sale. Maybe they've sold a house before. They know what it's like. Maybe they just don't want open houses. Like they've got dogs in their house and they don't want to keep having to let their dogs out. Or maybe they have kids and they don't want to keep having people in and out of their property. And maybe they've been through inspections if they had inspection issues, and they just simply want the easier route. And they compare and they say, okay, I could, have this process where I've got to get my house show ready, keep it clean, have an open house with a lot of people on my property, maybe have showings after that, maybe go through an inspection, hope that the appraisal is going to come in where it needs to, hope that their mortgage is going to come in where it needs to, hope that the buyer doesn't get cold feet. None of those things are good, right? Like, we'll all acknowledge that they can be not that bad, right? Things can go smooth in a sale, but there are people who hear both options and they go, you know what? I just want the easier option, and that's it. Easier option. And that could be somebody who just, they can have a ton of equity in their property. That's another thing to kind of consider, is like, if somebody doesn't need every last dollar in their property, sometimes that is a factor, right? Maybe you bought a property for $20,000 30 years ago that's worth $1 million today. And you're like, yeah, like, I just want an easy sale. I'm still going to make a ton of money and be able to do what I need to do in my life. And I just don't want to go through this hassle. It could be somebody that's moving out of state. They could say, you know what? I mean, especially, again, not to make this too, New England centric, but we've had plenty of people. They're like, you know what? I'm going to sell this junky old 100-year-old house for $1 million. And I'm going to go to Florida. I'm going to go to South Carolina. I'm going to go to Texas. I'm going to get a house for 400 grand. That's way better than the house I have now. Have a ton of money left over on the side. And I just kind of want to make this happy. I just want to be happy, and I want to make this seamless. So this just all goes back again to the conversations that, I've had with people over the last, years, but recently I've had more of these. I've had more people that believe that there is some way that they can know whether or not a seller is going to take a cash offer, or they don't want to offer their seller a cash offer because they think for some reason it might be bad. And both of those are not true. You cannot know. And this is why, driving for dollars is a waste of time, because you can have somebody with a really, really beat up property and they don't want to sell to an investor. You can have somebody with a really, really beat up property and their mortgage balance could be too high that they can't sell to you. It's why that you have to have that conversation with the seller. It's why I believe that as part of your listing presentation, you should give them this option, right? And when we give them this option and you give them this option, it is just that. It's an option. It's something that the seller has if they want to take it. If they don't, that's okay. We can, you have both options. You're an agent with Investor Solutions that can help them, no matter how they want to sell their house. And yeah, you can still, list their house. You can make the listing process as easy as possible, but we all know it's still not going to be as easy as if they just sold directly to an investor, right? So they've got to weigh that out with your help, right? Your job is to ask them a bunch of questions, help them determine what they're actually looking for, right? Do they want time and convenience, or do they want to have a little bit less convenience and try to max out the dollar amount that they're going to get, right? And that is not up for you to determine, just like it's not up to me. Like, if I'm a car salesman, I can't just tell you, hey, you need to buy a Lamborghini, right? And we all hate that, right? You go into a car dealership, someone's trying to push something that you don't want without asking you a bunch of questions. Asking the right questions about how they want to sell their property is only going to help you help them, which is in turn going to get you more business. Okay. So one more thing, as we're here, I just want to mention that, like, if you have not sent us over a deal yet, if you have not partnered with us yet and you want to learn more, the best way to learn more about whether you, number one, want to work with us, and number two, about how we do things, is to come to our upcoming events. You can always figure out when our next day and time of our events are, because I use the same website every single time, which is www.realestateagent.com. www.agentinvestorevent.com. So it doesn't matter when this is. You can go to www.agentinvestorevent.com. The one that we have coming up, as I'm recording this right now, is going to be a panel of all other agents that have worked with us. So I think we gathered up, I don't know, somewhere between 6 to 10 agents that have all partnered with us. And we're going to talk about the experiences that they've had, right? Because I can say whatever. Like, if you guys know me, if you actually really know me, like, you trust me because I've always done right by you. But if you don't know me, I had somebody respond back to a message I sent the other day, and they were like, "You are the biggest, BS artist out there." And I'm like, "Wait a minute, like, we don't even know each other. We never met." And the funny thing about this agent agent game is we're all connected, right? We're all connected, and that's the beauty, right? On our partnership program, if you're anywhere in New England, I can guarantee you know an agent who's partnered with us. That's what I said to the person. I go, "Hey, like, what market are you in? What cities and counties do you serve?" I'll literally send you somebody we've partnered with. You can talk to them, which is what the panel is all about, right? The panel isn't about me telling my stories and whatever. It's about other agents who have partnered with us, some that are in the inner circle, some that are in our brokerage, some that aren't, some that have known me for years, some that have known me for almost no time. And we're going to talk about their experiences. Again, register for that at www.agentinvestorevent.com. But we are going to talk about a few things there. We're going to talk about how they found the deal, how the experience was when we went out and met their seller, if we did it that way. We're going to talk about what the process was like for us buying the property. Importantly, how their seller felt. Like, did their seller feel good about this process? Was their seller happy at the end? We're going to talk about what the process was like when we were renovating the property, when we went to list the property. And we're going to ask them. Not every agent's going to be willing to share this, but I'm going to ask every single one. I'm going to say, "Hey, in the end, if you're comfortable with it, what was the profit?" Again, they're going to be all over the place. So you're going to hear the truth. You're going to hear the truth from other people's perspectives, not just mine, about this. And we're going to teach people at the event how to find deals. We're going to teach people how to invest those dollars into assets. Again, why are we doing this, right? We are doing this I had no interest in flipping homes. I've flipped, somewhere between probably 1,000 to 1,500 homes. I had no interest in flipping. I'm still not super interested in flipping. Flipping's not really my thing, but I flip to get big chunks of income to use on passive income assets, which is why we're doing this, right? You're an agent who needs to invest because you need 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 or $25,000 a month coming in from the assets that you own, so that you don't have to stress out about how many houses you're selling next month. That's what this is all about. Selling homes is a beautiful thing. It's an awesome business. It's a fun business, but it can be super stressful when you're sweating every commission coming in. It's why, again, I lead off all these sessions. We help agents get off the real estate roller coaster. That's the worst thing to be on, right? And most agents are on the real estate roller coaster. It's not your fault. It's just how the business is set up. But what you have is the ability, like no other industry, right? I don't teach this to engineers and lawyers and doctors for a reason, because lawyers and doctors and architects and whatever, they don't come across deals by accident. You guys do. We teach the strategies on how to find deals that come across your plate without you even really putting in a ton of effort. So, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most amount of time with. Take the time to come to our event. Don't say, "Hey, the event, it's too far, or, I have to fly there, or it's an hour away." Guys, I've flown all over the country to come to events for people that I knew could help me. Do not let distance or time or a low priority task that day stop you from attending the event. www.agentinvestorevent.com. Again, don't judge a book by its cover when you're meeting these sellers. Let us help you present a cash offer as an option for your seller. It's going to add more value. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I hope